Welcome back. In our special report this week, Embassy's Bernard Kankhono exposes how some parents are easily selling their children to the streets for alms at the expense of their future.
At the start of this year, a young man called Martin, not his real name, arrived in Malawi's commercial capital, Blantyre, from his home village, Dowa. Martin's aunt, who is visually impaired, got him to town as a guide on her errands for charities. The 10-year-old says he thought this would open a way to access better education to prepare him for his dream to become a soldier.
I was encouraged by my parents that if I go in town without being educated, I would be arrested. So since I had been advised that in town I'll be getting good education than what I was getting in the village, I accepted to come here.
In a day, Martin further claimed that her aunt and boss generates about 4,000 kwacha, with 200 kwacha for the little one's daily wage. He says some of the proceeds are sent to Martin's parents to benefit from the toil of his labor.
I was told that if we collect more money from the begging we do in the streets, my parents back in the village will be getting a share of it. Sometimes when my parents want money, they call to get their share.
When asked for her side of the story, Martin's aunt refused to comment. Martin's story is not an isolated incident. Records indicate that out of 1,700 street-connected kids in Blantyre, half are employed to beg or act as guides for beggars, and Stefano Joseph is District Social Welfare Officer for Blantyre.
We as a district also we are implementing reintegration efforts with the support from various stakeholders. So through that also we have been able to reintegrate a great number of children back to their respective homes. And through that reintegration, we have learned that most of the children really are coming from the districts around Chikwawa, Sanje, Cholo, Chiradzulu, and so many other districts.
Blantyre became a UN signatory to a convention on the rights of the child by becoming a child-friendly city in 1991. About 3 decades later, realities on the ground are in sharp contrast to its commitment. One of the country's child-centered organizations, Love Builds, says the tendency of giving alms to street-connected children is fueling the practice. Johanne Banda is an official with the group.
I think at the end of the day, people think that when you give a child school fees, when you give a child clothes, that's enough. But there is also emotional attachment which has to be there at the end of the day, because they don't only look for materials, but they also look for your love. So love conquers all at the end of the day.
Not only is the practice of engaging children to beg is in conflict with the country's Child Care, Protection and Justice Act of 2010, the tendency is also a violation of the country's labor laws. Recently, government removed about 6,000 of the country's estimated 9,000 street-connected kids from the country's streets. Their removal was in line with a 2021 directive by the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare that the streets are not safe spaces for the upbringing of children. This was in the wake of mounting cases of child neglect across the country. Children are affected by all of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including those on education, poverty, and violence. Also of particular concern is that rough and brutal circumstances they are exposed to in the streets present a fertile ground for children like Martin to easily grow into instruments of terror and social disorder.
The Anti-Corruption Bureau, ACB, says it is working in collaboration with the police and the Ministry of Agriculture in making sure that this year's